What is going on, Lucid fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. As you may or may not be aware, on this channel, I like to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. So today I want to talk on 3 red flags as being very apparent to us as investors and what that might result in. Before I get into any of that, you guys know the deal by now. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. It's always greatly appreciated. With that, let's get right to it. Actually, just a little bit more of a housekeeping. Every time I do a little bit more of a negative viewpoint video, a lot of people always start off by saying that I'm shorting. So just for disclosure, no, I am not shorting Lucid as of right now. I've never shorted Lucid, and I still have a very substantial position in Lucid. So still have my position, and no, I'm not shorting. So just want to clear the air, I guess, because I know a lot of people are going to say that. But let's get to the first red flag. So when it comes down to the recent launch event in general, though, I think this showcased their vehicles very well. So they did have the Pure and also the Touring, as you can see, showcased. So that is going to be a very good thing that we can look forward to. But based on the Q2 earnings, of the reservations that we currently do have, majority of which are for the Pure. So that's the highest one. So clearly the market wants a lower price vehicle. And as of right now, we actually have no vehicles that's going to be coming out in 2023. Potentially, we might have the Dream Edition, the P and the R, but I haven't heard anything. I know they announced it saying that it's for Europe, but as far as when they're going to be starting these new vehicles, we don't know. So as of right now, of course, there could be some surprise catalysts, but technically, as of right now, the Gravity is the next known vehicle to come out. Meaning, as far as revenue, reservations, demand, it's all going to piggyback off of the Air, which in general isn't that bad of a deal, because I know the Pure is going to do a very good job of raising demand, especially based on its price point and also the performance of it as well. It definitely is going to appeal to a lot of individuals, but coming from a new standpoint, because you'd be surprised of what happens in the market. The Pure is launched and was just recently launched 2 days ago, give or take. And 2 months from now, people are going to forget all about the Pure. People are going to want to know what is the next big catalyst. And unfortunately, that's one negative aspect of investing. People are very short-term minded. And the fact is, as it stands right now, the Pure is potentially the only vehicle coming out until, like I said, the Gravity, which is in 2024. So we do have a very long time period of no known catalysts. And I know some of you might not think that's a negative or a red flag or anything like that, but keep in mind, like I said, on growth stocks, which right now Lucid does fall under that criteria, people have very, very short-term memory span. So anything that's basically outside of 1 week, they forgot it. And a very good example of that was when Saudi Arabia announced that they're going to be doing up to 100,000 order with Lucid through a 10-year span. Well, guess what? The market obviously went up because that was a very good catalyst, but guess what happened the following week or even 2 weeks? People stopped talking about it. People did not care one bit because it was old news. So this might unfortunately happen in Lucid's case. Hopefully, as usual, I hope I am wrong about this and they do have another surprise lower price vehicle, or maybe they bump it up, because when it comes down to the Sapphire, this wasn't on their original plan, their 2021 plan. So maybe they do have some more surprise things coming out potentially, but as it stands right now, they are surprises and not known to investors. So again, that is my first red flag that I personally feel is a little bit more relevant. And so outside of that though, and moving on to the second red flag that I find very relevant, is dilution. So they recently announced and piggybacked this with their Q3 earnings. So 1.5 billion capital, so 670 as far as just a regular dilution. The rest is going to be proposed to the PIF to purchase, and based on news, it does look like they are going through with that. So 1.5 billion dilution. So again, some people might like it, some people might not. Keep in mind, they also did a $8 billion shelf offering that was, I believe, in the beginning of October or September, somewhere around there. So they potentially have the ability, and it did get approved, so they potentially do have the ability to do up to 8 billion over a 3-year time span. And going back here, just to put that in perspective, right now we're a 19.26 billion market cap company. So that could be a little bit more detrimental. And to put that in perspective right now, looking at the recent earnings, their Q3 earnings, they have 3.85 billion in cash. And in here though, they say that they have up until the fourth quarter 2023 for sufficient amount of cash. And I don't know technically if they were incorporating that recent 1.5 billion, because like I said, they did piggyback that 1.5 billion offering with their earnings. So I don't know if that's incorporated or potentially that pushes it into 2024. They weren't really that transparent when it comes down to that. And technically as well, so Q1 and also Q2, oddly enough, they use the same terminology, just changed the figures as far as how much they had in cash. But Sherry did say the exact same thing, that basically they have up until well into 2023. And like I said, when it comes to it though, that's all fine and dandy, because we do know that a startup company, especially in the first couple of years, they do need a lot of money. But more so by 2024, you would assume that at that stage in the game, we would be at roughly about 100,000 vehicles, give or take, or around 75,000 as far as overall capacities. So that should be bringing in sufficient amount of revenue. But there is one thing I just wanted to show you. There's a recent interview with Peter. And on a side note, before I do start this, I'm just going to play 1 or 2 minutes, or roughly about a minute of this. But every single actual earnings call, I say that analysts are too timid with Peter. Nobody just basically grabs him and say, answer this. And even if potentially Peter doesn't answer the question, this interview, they tie them down, and you'll kind of see Peter gives a little bit more of a vague answer, and then the actual interviewer ties him down and says, so what do you mean? Let's cycle back to that, because you just told us that you're going to be doing a little bit more dilution. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to quickly go over this and then get your thoughts on that. So while I'm doing all this as well, all the points, make sure you guys comment in the description below if you do disagree with anything I say, because like I said, I could be wrong. I'm not a financial advisor or anything. These videos are for entertainment purposes only. But let's get right to the actual interview.
But let's start first off. This is our first chance to talk with you since your Q3 financial report last week. Wider than expected loss. Your reservations, the number is dropping a little bit. And there's a question among investors after you do a capital raise for $1.5 billion about the pathway to profitability. Do you understand why investors are nervous right now about Lucid?
I think everyone recognizes this is a capital-intensive business. We've always said we need to raise more money. And the reason is that we're generating all this technology in-house. We're manufacturing it in-house. We're vertically integrated. The true value proposition of the company for investors is long-term. We're very committed to that long-term vision.
But how many more capital raises might there be? Nobody expected this $1.5 billion. Are you confident this is the last one you'll need on the road to profitability?
We'll need a number of raises. We need to raise billions of dollars to get there. This is a long-term play, a vertically integrated operation.
Let me stop you for a second before we talk about the touring. A number of capital raises are in your future. So if you're an investor, you're looking at Lucid right now and saying, how do I know how much dilution is coming in the future?
I think the path has been made very clear in terms of the raises that we needed, and I think it's a very clear value proposition.
Okay, so hopefully you guys got as entertained as I was when I was watching that. Hats off to the interviewer. He really just tied him down. And when it comes down to potentially the Q4, if any analysts from any institutions are listening, basically this is the type of questions that I'm looking for. When Peter tried to give some BS answer saying that we do everything in-house, well, that doesn't justify actual dilution, because basically on every single actual earnings call, they say that's going to be reducing costs. Why on earth is that his answer? That's a horrible answer. As I say in every earnings call, sorry if this is a little bit more of a pet peeve of mine, but they do not answer questions correctly. Why on earth are you talking about in-house production and doing everything in-house and technology and so forth? Why is that justifying for dilution? Makes zero sense. I do understand that they will need dilution and eventually need cash going forward, but not to billions of dollars as far as that regard, because the whole Saudi factory is $3.4 billion and the PIF is fully covering that. They're giving Lucid grants and so forth. So we don't need billions and billions of dollars. Like, this isn't right, especially if we're doing things in-house. That, in my opinion, is a very second red flag, especially more so dilution. Like I said, that does give me the impression that that $8 billion shelf offering, they plan on fully utilizing that. So again, going back here, we are 19.26 billion. So Arguably, at this stage in the game, they've done 1.5 billion for argument's sake. So we do have a pretty significant amount of dilution potentially coming in the future, even though I don't know what it could be going for, because like I said, based on the first red flag, they only have the actual one basic good vehicle that they're going to be really pumping out, and that is the 𝗪𝗓𝗡. So outside of that, what on earth could they be doing? Like, are they expanding to somewhere else? This is where the transparency coming from and communication to investors is absolutely horrible. And even actually was brought up in the Q3 earnings about, are you planning on being more transparent? Sherry's answer was absolutely horrible. I don't want to go through that and get worked up even more. But that's my second red flag. Let me know your thoughts on that. Third one is a little bit more of a different beast. And what I meant by that is, my last actual video, I did touch on this exact same thing. But at that stage in the game, I had 3 different sources and 3 different independent sources that do not know each other. They all privately messaged me and all told me the exact same stories. And so this is where I kind of brought it up in my last previous video as far as the highlights of the launch event. But since then though, I did have 2 other individuals that told me the exact same story, so it brings a grand total to around 5 individuals, and also verified it through a actual studio advisor. So this, what I'm going to be bringing up as far as my third red flag that I see, is a little bit more of a systemic thing. So it might be a bigger picture kind of problem, but again, I'm going to get all to that. So keep in mind, 2,282 vehicles were produced in Q3. Delivered was roughly about 1,398. So arguably around 1,000 vehicles. This was actually posed and asked during the Q3 earnings, which again, that's very good, where us as retail investors are given the opportunity to ask a lot of difficult questions, such as this. So the question was, looks like there's around 1,000 cars that have been produced and not delivered. Why is that? And where are these cars stored? Peter did say, well, the function and blah, 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 it's obviously then ramping up, and naturally there's going to be a phase lag between producing the cars and getting them out to our dear customers. And Sherry goes on to basically say that it's because of higher volume and things like that. But at the end of the day, what I'm about to tell you is a little bit more contradicting, so potentially they might be lying. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to show you, replay this once again. So it's a roughly about 20-second snippet from the actual launch event that I'm going to share with you. So I'm going to go through this and talk on, once again, some red flags that was brought up from all of this. So stay tuned for this.
Because of the way we've scheduled production, those who want to purchase a Grand Touring or a Grand Touring Performance now, or to upgrade their existing order to either of these models, can expect to take delivery in a quicker than expected time frame. And
So exactly how I said during my previous video, technically if someone just listens to that, that is very optimistic. But what I've been informed, like I said, from a lot of different independent sources and has been verified by a studio advisor, it does look like anyone who did cancel their reservation, possibly because of the rate hike or whatever it might have happened, because keep in mind, I believe it was June the 1st was the deadline. Any orders that didn't get rolled over or things like that, they had to pay higher pricing because of obviously inflation and so forth and higher costs in general. But that definitely isn't going to sit right with what I'm saying and about to say right now. So anyone who potentially did cancel their actual order is getting calls from these advisors saying, hey, if you go back and take back your order, we will verify and give you the old pricing. So in my opinion, that is very, very poor customer service, because anyone who felt pressured because they wanted to lock in the old prices before the rate hike, or potentially anyone who did actually order any of these vehicles at the higher pricing, well, guess what? Now they're being offered at a lower price. So that's a little bit more of a middle finger, and this is very abnormal because normally Lucid is very good for customer service. So I think this is a very negative aspect. But again, when I say it's a little bit more systemic, customer satisfaction aside, which is technically a problem, but customer satisfaction aside, what I start to draw the conclusion to is going back here to the Q3 earnings, just right here. So Peter and Sherry, Were they actually lying? Are these 1,000 vehicles that are right here, is it because of cancellations that they have no buyers, or is it just taking longer than expected? Again, that makes you question things like, why are they now pushing so hard, or could be considered desperate? Why are they so desperate to get the cancellations of the actual orders? Because as of right now, even though it did go down and kind of crappy if you ask me, but we do have 34,000 reservations as it stands. Why on earth are they calling back customers and committing their order can be done in roughly about 2 weeks? Why are they doing that unless they have vehicles sitting around? Of course, as I mentioned already, this could be just completely wrong. I might be jumping to conclusions, but this is how you get to start thinking to the next level. Of course, like I said at the very beginning, I'm still very much bullish on Lucid, but I think coming from a good investor, to be a good investor, you have to be able to call out BS. You have to be able to acknowledge that there is red flags, because for any company, not necessarily just Lucid, if you are investing in a company that has no red flags, well then that means you are not looking hard enough. There's always red flags on every single company out there. You just have to acknowledge if it's a big red flag that's going to amount to something or not. So again, those are the 3 red flags that I do see as a little bit more of an issue potentially in the short term or long term that might affect Lucid, especially more so the dilution. Like I said, I think that's a little bit more of a touchy subject with investors. And over and above that, like I said, with a 3rd red flag about possibly demand issues. Again, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments below. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And if you do like my channel, want to support the growth, take a look at my memberships, link in the description below, or just hit the join button at the bottom of the screen. With that said, I appreciate you guys watching. Let's all make a lot of money on Lucid.